Hello to a new episode of the Future Tribe podcast. My name is Germaine.
And my name's Kelsey.
We've got a bit of a different format. It's a new episode, new season, new format, joined by Kelsey on this episode. And moving forward, we'll be joined by Kelsey as well. If you aren't familiar about who she is, you'll see her very active in the Facebook group. Link down in the description or notes of wherever you're watching or listening to this episode. I mentioned the change in format. We're doing something a little bit different, sort of reminiscent of the Last Week on Tuesday series that we used to do, where we want to talk all things marketing, design, and business, just like we do in the Facebook group. And we've got a lot of news this week, Kelsey. I don't know if you've taken a look at what we're going to be talking about, but there's a bunch of logo design, like redesigns, Twitter sort of stuffing up their whole app. Finally, we talk about the .au domain. I've been waiting out for it for probably the last 18 months, and we're going to get it soon-ish, but not soon enough. And then a bunch of WordPress and acquisition news of businesses that are very important to us getting acquired. So let's roll into that. Let's start off with the new Chandon logo. Let me make sure that anyone who's watching, we're going to be sharing the various things that we're talking about as they come up. So just hop on the video if you want to look at what we're looking at, and if you're listening to the podcast episode, you might have to watch it later on. Hopefully, you won't miss out on too much. What are your first thoughts, Kelsey?
Well, actually, before we go into first thoughts, should we explain what brand new is for anyone that's not familiar with the site, perhaps?
Very good spot. So brand new is one of my favorite places to look at sort of the most up-to-date news on logos, really. Logos, packaging design. They don't sort of venture too far away from that, which is lovely because it's nice and specific.
Nice focused. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's an awesome place. They've got their own podcast as well. I can't say I've listened to it
sort
too
of a
much.
Community-built blog sort of thing? Is that how it started off, where it was people sort of spotting different logos in the wild?
Yeah, I don't know. I know there's like one main guy. I think his name's Armin. He posts a lot of the various logos, but I'm not sure if it's, now it is definitely community sourced. Like you can go in and add news, and Armin adds his own news, and you'll see sometimes where he sort of thought, oh, they've changed the logo, but realized, foreshadowing us talking about Haagen-Dazs' rebrand. As it turns out, Haagen-Dazs was using their new logo in other geographies, but not in the US until recently. So, it's sort of somewhat community sourced, which is nice. And the comment section's full of really good comments, advice, and feedback and reviews from quite experienced people as well. So even if you're a graphic design student or learning logos and brand design, it's a fantastic place and a fantastic resource. But is that how you would describe brand new? Does that cover all the positives in your eyes?
Yeah, I'd say so. And the only other thing is, for me, I use a free version, so I don't get all of the information at the bottom, but I think it's only like $2 a month or something if you do want to see that extra detail and really delve into all that information.
Yeah, because there's different, Armin goes into his thoughts and really, I guess, extrapolates on just that simple sort of what starts as a logo or redesign. But like Kelsey mentioned, I think it's a few dollars. I do have a membership. I've been telling you, Kelsey, that I'll get you a membership for a little while. We might have to organize that soon so that you don't have to look at the, just the images.
We'll get there at some point. It's kind of fun. I make up my own story behind it when I look at them. So it's fine.
Well, jumping into it, we've had this on the screen for a little while now. It's the Chandon. I mean, it's a complete logo redesign, I would say, or undesign, depending on who you're talking to. They've gone for just the words Chandon.
Yeah, I think my first comment when I saw it was yesterday or something, was it just makes me think of Chanel. It seems like the same font, the same thickness, and obviously it starts with that CH. So I'm not sort of sure. I mean, it's in the same area, I suppose, of sort of being like luxury and fancy, so that works for them, but unsure. It seems like they're kind of just copying the same kind of word mark.
Saying that, though, I mean, a lot of higher end luxury, though I guess Chandon, I wouldn't necessarily call Chandon a luxury brand, but they're part of Louis Vuitton, Moët Hennessy, so I guess they are a high end beverage. So a lot of them do. I mean, this is somewhat reminiscent of the Louis Vuitton, like the word mark for Louis Vuitton as well. So not a huge departure in that sense.
That's true. I'm kind of sad they got rid of that star, though. I'm liking that star.
Well, this is one of those logos, I think, that they could have done a refresh, maybe even pulled out that the star and the sort of vague C shape with the tail of the star. They could have very easily pulled it aside, expanded or enlarged those elements a little bit to make the overall usefulness of it on sort of newer applications a bit more viable, because I think that would be a big reason. Like, if you asked me for what the Chandon icon used to be, I wouldn't be able to point it out because it's a bit, I don't know, it is very minimal, but it is a bit extra with sort of the shading and the shadowing. So I can see why they'd want to move away from it, but not so far away. Plus, I mean, you could almost just get rid of the graphic details and keep that Chandon word mark, maybe thicken it a little bit, but you could have almost even done that, no?
Yeah, I think so. It'd be interesting to see the application of the old logo versus the new one on the wine bottles. Have you seen any versions of those?
I haven't seen the old version.
So they're kind of the sideways approach on that one.
Going further down, yeah. And then they've changed the star here as well from what used to be a 5-pointed star with a sort of one of the points a bit sort of extruded.
A shooting star kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a shooting star vibe. But now they've gone to a 7-pointed star that, I don't know, looks like every other star.
Where does Chandon come from? What's the actual country it's based in?
Good question. Trying to just reading
a lot of
through.
countries in that.
They have wineries everywhere, but I mean, I assume France, but I might be wrong. Combined traditional French techniques. Not sure. I guess it goes to show we're not really Chandon drinkers and consumers.
No. I was just looking at that 7-point star, though, thinking maybe this is a very Australian thing to think, but like Southern Cross star related or something, but
I don't think it's
obviously
Australian.
not an Australian brand, so like that doesn't fit.
I'm 99% sure it's not Australian, but I might be wrong.
No.
I might be wrong.
It's definitely not.
Moving further down, they have some interesting elements. Obviously, I mean, we're not reading necessarily into their reasoning around this, but it's not immediately obvious. Okay, apparently it's map visualizations. And now at a high level, it's not making me connect, map visualizations and alcohol, but...
I wonder why they're going the map visualizations. I can't even speak. Like, it would make sense, I think, if you had an alcohol brand that had so many variations and, like, different flavors that were, if they made, like, tequila and they made vodka or something, and you sort of lean into their traditional locations for those drinks, but it's, it's all sparkling, which
it's not
I feel
that
like everyone
diversified.
associates with, like, France, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
But
it's,
I
don't know either. It's probably something that we could read into, but looking at, you did mention looking at the old logo application on the bottle. This is what it used to look like. I mean, pretty classic. Nothing necessarily too exciting. I've definitely seen more interesting bottles, alcoholic beverage bottles. Here we go, side by side. It does look a little bit better, and I think they're using one of the map visualizations there in the background as well.
That shape. Not that you'd look at it and go, that's a map visualization. So.
Well, it's very high level, isn't it?
Yeah, that old one definitely looks dated compared to the new one. But then, I mean, I think actually they've done it quite well. I was going to say that you do risk losing that sort of traditional, old, fancy kind of vibe when you do a brand refresh like this, but I think they've done it quite well to like keep that, not super premium, but like premium enough that you're not just going to pick it up on a regular Saturday kind of thing. It's sort of special events and all of that. I think they've still kept
definitely
that vibe around the bottle, which is good.
It is good, but then there's that star. I must say I do prefer the old star. I wish they'd kept that. And then Chandon
new one's
up
growing
the
on
side. It's a star though. It doesn't really leave a lot of room for standing out in the alcohol bottle market, or the alcohol market is very crowded.
That's true.
And then that sideways. I guess the benefit of having the logo sideways is that it's much larger now. Though, I mean, going further down, I think this application of a very low contrast color palette, I would call it, is interesting.
Is it like the gold to pink?
Yeah, or it's just it's consistently pink, like it's
muted?
very muted. Yeah, that's probably how I'd describe it. But again, I guess Chandon. I don't know the market, but I would assume they're not necessarily competing against many others.
I have to say that pink is a very millennial pink, which is for somebody that's right in that demographic. Very
That's
nice
probably
to
what
look
they're
at.
going for. The bottle in the middle here is what stands out to be the most. I wish more of the applications are like this, where the name's just popping and so is that star. I think it looks very high end.
Yeah, it definitely looks like the fancy end of what you're looking at. But, I mean, I would still go the pink one, personally. So they've done their research well, I think.
Yeah, they're sort of hitting that demographic. Here's some more up-close imagery for those who are watching the video. And then...
I see what they've done.
Yeah.
When you pour it, it looks like it's, well, you can actually read it.
Yeah, and it's much bigger. That is...
Actually, I think Coca-Cola and like some other brands do a very similar thing, don't they? Where
Probably.
Coke has it, I think, going up
Yes.
the can so that when you're drinking it, it's...
Of course. Well, overall, I mean, it is another logo that we've lost to the sans serif simplified world that we're increasingly going into.
Yeah. I think it definitely comes down to how they apply it as well. Like in first glance, when you just see Chandon in black and that's it, it's just like, well, what's the point? But seeing it in application and how they've used it on the bottles, I don't mind. Still confused with the geographic map. Yeah.
I mean, like you look at this, like what we're looking at the moment is an example of a billboard, like transit railway billboard, and to me, it looks a bit same. Doesn't necessarily...
I feel like I just forget the brand as soon as I walk away. I just be like, oh, what was the brand? Like I kind of remember some colours and stuff, but the brand itself...
But not really. Yeah, it's quite
I wouldn't
muted.
recall.
And like, okay, I see someone really happy. They've hit, a tattooed person. They've hit the multicultural sort of diversity angle. But then the Chandon bottle in these images are really quite small. Maybe they're so well known and their market is, so tight, and everyone's aware of, every Chandon buyer is already aware of Chandon and already buying Chandon. Maybe, but it's okay, I would say. And then Interesting. There's some interesting comments as we mentioned before. You can check out the brand new comments as well into some other opinions. But I don't know. What would you rate it if you had to rate this as a rebrand? As a rebrand and then as a new logo. How would you or a new brand? How would you sort of rate them?
I feel like it's a bit of a tough one because looking at all of the marketing material they had and the imagery they were using, it looks quite young and fun, which makes me think that they're trying to shift from that captured audience that you said they've probably already got, which I imagine is a much older demographic, and maybe they're really trying to get that younger demographic who would respond to something simple like this versus that older, almost like 90s kind of design style. So I feel like if they're going for that younger, maybe even younger than like millennial, I'd probably say like, I can't even rate it, 7 out of 10 maybe. They haven't had to do too much, but like you don't have to do too much sometimes, as long as you get the supporting marketing right and the supporting branding right. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see whether you sort of see them more in liquor stores and things, or if they sort of die out a little bit. Not that they die out, but you know. Yeah,
if they stay a bit more static than perhaps they would have wanted to be. 7 out of 10. I mean, I'd probably go like 6. That's to say that it's not bad. So, you know, it's not, I'm not going to sit in the middle, but if you know, it's okay. It's a little bit better than okay maybe, but nothing too interesting or exciting there. Very much the classic rebrand that we've seen of established brands these days, where they're going to that sans serif, where they're going to something a bit more hip and vibrant and millennial, though at least we didn't see, you know, a color palette similar to Dropbox where every single bright color is part of that color palette, and, you know, you get lost in just a lot of nothing. But
I mean, I think you'd get a bit concerned if a champagne and that kind of realm sparkling wine company started introducing bright colours, because then you'd be like, all right, how much sugar's in this? How crazy am I going to get after I drink this? Like, what's going to happen to me? If you keep them muted, though, it really like lines up with what you're actually drinking.
Yeah, that's true. I think you've got some good points there. So it sounds like you're a bit more of a fan than I am, perhaps.
I probably fall into the demographic, though, so when I was looking at all the imagery, I was like, oh, yeah, this is kind of cool. Doesn't say a lot, and I probably wouldn't remember it if I wasn't looking at it deeply now, but I don't mind it.
Yeah, okay. Moving on, I'm trying to decide whether we should talk about the Twitter redesign or not.
I mean, I'd like you to explain it to me, because I'm not really a Twitter fan and I don't use Twitter, so I'm not super across what they've redesigned. All I know is that there was a big backlash.
Yeah,
Can you talk me through like what's happened?
Cool. Let's take a look at it. So this I actually spotted from The Verge. If you don't read The Verge, I definitely suggest changing your life and starting to watch their YouTube channel and reading The Verge. But essentially their headline reads, Twitter is changing the contrast of buttons again after complaints of eye strain. So the general sort of consensus here is that they came up with a very intense color palette, where if you look into, let me just click through and see if there's a good sort of visual representation of it all. Here we go. Let me just change that over. So if I show you what I'm looking at.
Just looking at that tweet that it said changing the colours to make images and things stand out more. That's almost like, I mean, we discussed in the office the other day about Instagram shifting away from photo sharing. I wonder if Twitter's sort of looking at their media approach and how they sit in that market.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you mentioned you're not really on Twitter. Neither am I. I go on Twitter every once in a while to message, you know, Samsung support or one of the support channels, because it's so public that they tend to get back to you within 24 hours. But I don't know. I mean, Twitter, there's clearly still a market for it. I've never been a huge user. I think, you know, a lot of journalists are on there, so maybe we're missing something or we're not quite the demo. But this is an example of
And I mean,
the
this
redesign.
is in particular in Australia. Yeah.
Yes.
Because, I mean, I'm not sure that it ever really took off too much in Australia, but definitely in America, you see it being used a lot.
Yeah, definitely. It's much bigger over there. Still, journos over here in Australia use it a fair bit. But this is the redesign that they were talking about. Very high contrast, as you can see, Kelsey. If you're not watching the video, they've just gone. I would say that's probably outright black buttons, black text, and then a lot of white. So there's not a lot of shades of colors. It's just the Twitter blue, black, a grey, and I'm not spotting any other colors. Are you?
No. And I mean, I'm trying to figure out what the issue is at the moment, actually, looking at these, because they look fine to me. But again, I'm not used to the interface of Twitter. So.
Well, what the issue's been is that because of the high contrast, when you're looking at it, like when you're looking at just a screenshot, you don't really get that impact. But then imagine seeing this, like scrolling through and everything's just black, white, like everything's really stark. And that just puts a lot of pressure on your eyes because there's no hierarchy there, right? So images stand out, but then everything else, images and buttons stand out, everything else is just lost. Like everything else is just jumbled in together, and that's really the issue. They also launched with it a new typeface called Chirp. Pretty cute name at least. But you know, it's generally been not well received. They've gone back to the drawing board. They're sort of changing things around a little again. There's talks about it not being a very accessible sort of website anymore. There's reports of people getting eye strain, headaches and migraines due to the high visual contrast, which...
I mean, you're spending too much time on the app then if you're getting that.
I wonder if it's the app or if it's the website that's worse. Well, there you go. I'm not on Twitter, as you can see. Well, not often enough to be signed up. But I guess this is a reminder to look at contrast ratios. I think, you know, balancing it up, and we always talk about this in the office, talk about what things are shouting out. Is there a hierarchy? Is everything shouting together? Well, if everything's shouting together, imagine a room full of 100 people shouting. You're not going to notice anything or notice anyone. So it's I guess, a bit of a lesson in, you know, balancing out a whole color palette and taking an intentional sort of approach to design there. The next thing, moving on, is news that I've been so excited about this for so long. I think I probably mention it every other week at the office.
Yeah.
Biding my time. And
I thought you were just making stuff up for a while, because I was like, I'm not hearing anything about this. Clearly not, though.
And what it is that the .au, then they're calling it .au Direct. This is a newsletter directly from the Australian Domain Authority or administrators, whatever they call themselves. And essentially, they're announcing that from the 24th of March 2022, we'll be able to access a new domain namespace that instead of .com.au, you can just get a .au, which is about time. I think I noticed the other day that New Zealand has a .nz. So I don't know why it's taken us this long. It was originally supposed to happen earlier this year, and then they blamed COVID. They blamed coronavirus for not launching it, which I don't really know how the coronavirus affected it. But to be fair, I don't really know what the inner workings of releasing a .au domain are. And then when we go into it, you know, if you've already got a .com.au, you'll be prioritized. You'll be allowed to get an exact name match. So you'll be able to get your .au versus, you know, someone else getting it off you or sort of stealing it off you. They actually backdated that cutoff date so that you can't register a domain now to just get the .au in the future. So essentially, I assume that'd be a 3 to 6 month period. And, they mention here that it'll bring Australia in line with many other countries, including the UK, Canada, US, and New Zealand. So about time.
Yeah. Does that follow the same rules as .com.au in that you have to have a registered business to get an AU?
I don't think you need to have a registered business to get an AU. I think you might need to prove residency potentially.
Okay.
But I assume, if anything, it'd make it even more. They'd even ramp up the rules a little bit and make it a bit tighter to get a .au. But as they mention here, .com.au will continue to function. And then they do mention, eligible people will continue to be able to register new domains under com.au, org.au, and so on and so forth. They go into here, priority status to register the exact match of the existing domain. And you'll get 6 months to do this, commencing in March 2022. All I can say is about time, and I can't wait.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we'll have a bunch. I mean, I would say that if you've got a .com.au, you should probably use that 6 months to decide to definitely get a .au.
It'll be interesting to sort of see whether the general public who maybe aren't aware of .au, whether they'd see .au and assume that it's a typo or something for a little while. Like, I wonder if there'll be a bit of a change process of people trusting .au over .com.au.
Oh, for sure. I think, I mean, I still see people including the www. And we haven't needed to do that for a long time because most websites just revert to a www.less version of it, so it doesn't really matter.
I think I even do that sometimes. Definitely guilty.
And you work in the space somewhat, so I think there will be a bit of a period where people will sort of just assume that you forgot the .com part of .com.au, and at least for the first 6 months it wouldn't matter too much because you have a chance to register your
both anyway.
Yeah, alternative. But I could imagine, longer term, like someone going to futuretheory.au, and if we miss, if we don't renew .com.au, does that then become the property of, which it would become the property of whoever chooses to buy it if we don't choose to renew it? Is this a case of, are we just doubling how much companies have to spend or individuals have to spend to maintain?
I was just thinking that, because you wouldn't want to lose .com.au because so many people will still be familiar with that for probably years, let's be real. And if you're switching to just AU, all of a sudden you're going to have issues with somebody sort of stealing your name or damaging your identity or whatever. Like, there's so many different things that could pop up from that. So that'll be interesting. Yeah.
And saying that though, I'm just thinking, I've seen a lot of .ca sites and a .nz sites, but I've only seen .co.uk, and I don't think I've ever seen a .us, or I've never visited a .us site. Oh, Zoom.
No, isn't US just .com?
No, it's .us. .com is just commercial, it stands for, I think it's short form for commercial.
Zoom US.
So Zoom's the only recognizable company using a .us domain. But yeah, I wonder if maybe I'm just really close to it, so I'm the only one who's excited about a .au release and no one else is holding out for it.
I mean, I feel like it opens up some new opportunities if the name's not already taken in .com.au to do, a lot of companies will use the AU as like part of the name. I think it opens up a little bit there. I mean, like one I can think of, they're not an Australian company, I don't think, but Tableau is what we were talking about earlier. I think that ends in an AU, so they could use that for .au.
Okay.
I don't think they're Australian though, so that doesn't really matter.
Well, it could be a, cool use of like the .ly or the .ios of this world. maybe you're onto something. Maybe it'll create this new sort of waterfall of companies with a .au. Though not many words in English end with .au.
No, it would definitely have to be a unique business name that's not really an actual word. I think for it to work, like Tableau, for example, that's not obviously a word.
Yeah.
So,
Interesting. Moving on to the next one, Yoast SEO gets acquired by Newfold Digital. Now, I saw this, and I'd be lying if I said that this hasn't caused a lot of concern in my world and in the sort of circles that I'm a part of in the online world. Has this had sort of any impact in your sphere, Kelsey, as someone who doesn't necessarily work on WordPress sites too much?
For me, I'm not even 100% sure what it really means. It'd be great if you could explain it, because to me it's just like if some company has, I mean, I know of Yoast, but a company has been acquired by another company.
Yeah, okay, so the problem here isn't so much the acquisition. Companies get, as you sort of insinuated, it's just one company buying another company. It sort of doesn't really matter. But my concerns here are, so Yoast SEO, for those who don't know, are very trusted, probably the biggest, most trusted SEO or search engine optimization plugin on WordPress in the world. They've got 140 employees maintaining a plugin that people can use for free and choose to pay for. So that gives an idea of what sort of scale and how trusted they are. This is from WP Tavern. They've been acquired by Newfold Digital, and so the issue here is who Newfold Digital is, more than the fact that Yoast has been acquired. So if we look into it a little bit further, Newfold Digital, as you can tell from their website, have, what is that, like 18 different, and those are just the ones that they've put on here. So they haven't mentioned Yoast on here yet, for example, so there might be others.
There's a lot of host names in there.
Oh yeah, and some really established names. I mean, Crazy Domains, which is Australian, or there's an Australian counterpart, domain.com, web.com, Bluehost, Vodian, like all these are names that, I mean, at least half these names I'm familiar with. But Newfold Digital is actually formerly Endurance International Group, EIG. If you've ever heard of Bluehost, which is everywhere when you're looking for web hosting, because they got really cheap deals, you would have heard of EIG, and now they're called Newfold Digital. These guys are not known for their good business practices, let's put it that way. And so the fact that they've acquired Yoast, a plugin that I've trusted basically every single website, WordPress website I've built, has been trusted with Yoast. The fact that it's, they're on an open source platform, which is WordPress. And suddenly they're being bought by this company who's known for trying to milk as much money out of their customers as possible. So it makes me wonder, like, are we going to have to go back and, remove Yoast and install a different SEO alternative? There are other alternative plugins coming up, like Rank Math, but Yoast is just so simple.
So you think they're going to affect how Yoast sort of operates as a company?
I would be surprised if they don't. I mean, they haven't disclosed yet how much they've purchased Yoast for, but I think they're going to want to make some money back. So
that's fair enough.
They're going to start integrating it. They're going to start saying, okay, you can, what you used to be able to do for free, you need to pay us for, and so on and so forth. Some of the comments here sort of get into how much of musical chairs is going on in this world. This person here talking about the fact that they're not a fan of the business practices of EIG, and that they've changed names, and that he's doubting that much actually changes past the name here. So this is a bit of a heads up for any of you building WordPress sites, or if you have WordPress sites. I'm not saying I have a better alternative. In fact, that's why I'm sort of scared. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I guess that's why they would have been so keen to take it on, because then they do sort of have that massive market share, and they'll just have that power to be able to be like, all right, start paying us, or good luck finding something else.
Exactly. Oh, it's a monopoly, and not because. And this is the thing, though. It's not a monopoly because they force to install themselves or make it hard to, remove Yoast. It doesn't even come like pre-installed on WordPress. They've got such a monopoly just by being so good, and the team behind has been trusted for so long. But I hope. I wouldn't be surprised if a year or 2 years down the line, the original sort of CEO and the core team, the guys who founded and run Yoast, decide to leave for bigger and better things. They've got, like right here, it says they've got over 12 million active installations of Yoast.
Jeez, that's a lot.
That is a lot. That is, if everyone in Australia had a WordPress site, half the population would be using Yoast. So it's not small at all.
No.
But it's I guess, the world of business, the world of WordPress. So just something I wanted to make sure that we talk about it, and it's a bit of a heads up. We will, of course, if we find a better alternative, we're going to talk about that. But at this stage, just be aware that this has happened. In the past, it takes 12, 18, 24 months for the company who's just acquired another company to let the dust settle and start really ratcheting up how much money they want to milk out of you. So maybe we have a bit of time, but this is maybe an
somebody
opportunity.
Start developing a competitor. Get on it.
Maybe rank map is it, and I need to try it out again. I haven't given it a chance in the last 2 years. So moving on to another acquisition. Definitely give it another go. Another acquisition. Poddit. Have you heard of Poddit?
No, I haven't.
So Poddit is used to allow you or help you with finding guests for your podcast. Here's the article from PR Week. Poddit had a Facebook group. They've supposedly, I think they had about 6,500 members, which is nothing to sneeze at. It was only founded Q1 last year, so they really ramped it up. They had a website. We've found guests. I've been invited to be guests on different podcasts thanks to Poddit, but it's recently been acquired by PodMatch, and this I wanted to talk about, not so much because it's an acquisition of another company, but I think it raises interesting sort of questions about podcasting. And podcasting sort of has been around for a little while. It's, I would say, over the last few years, it's hit the mainstream, and now we're starting to see a bit of consolidation of companies that provide podcasting or podcasting affiliated
especially from
services.
The pandemic, I'd say. It's like sped up absolutely people listening to podcasts. And I mean, for me, I got so on board with podcasts during the first sort of wave or two. So
yeah, I mean,
definitely room there.
Well, this is a company called Poddit, just was started up as the pandemic was starting up. So and then to be great time, and then to be sold is obviously just shows how big podcasting has become. But I just wanted to bring it up and sort of put it out there. I thought that Poddit, the team behind Poddit, did a really fantastic job. Brent, who's the founder, they were sort of changing and optimizing the app very regularly. I do wonder though, as the pandemics become just part of life, whether people are listening to podcasts as much, and whether they're exiting just as a lot of these other companies start to exit. Like, there have been a lot of high ticket purchases and acquisitions of podcasting related services like Spotify buying Anchor and so on and so forth. And that was like in the middle of the pandemic. Not that we're out of it yet, but would you agree, Kelsey, that we've sort of that buzz around podcasting has waned off a little bit since like peak pandemic?
I actually think I disagree. I would say that I think there was probably a bit of a spike during the pandemic where people really got on board with podcasts and went, hey, this is cool. Like, I've never really looked at this, because they got bored of, I don't know, watching Netflix or whatever. And I think now people would likely be, looking for podcasts on their drive to work, or, where they would previously just put on the radio or put on a playlist. They're probably now more turning to podcasts. Like, I know I do that a bit, and I'm pretty sure you do it more in the form of YouTube videos, but same sort of concept where you're wanting to actually listen and take in a lot of things. And I think I've talked to a few friends about this actually, and they've all sort of said the same thing, where they'll listen to the podcast like on their lunch break or on the way to work or sitting on the train, because you might have, an hour to kill or something. Obviously this is like Melbourne or Sydney or wherever you are, but yeah,
right.
Just
so you
killing
think
time.
It sped up adoption, and then those individuals who got the habit of listening to podcasts aren't necessarily, losing that habit. They're keeping it.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe it speaks for the consolidation of podcasting more than, the fact that we're going to see more of these different entities merge and become one as podcasting becomes a bit less spiky, a bit less hot, but still very much relevant.
Absolutely, yeah. I think a lot of people are jumping on a bit late with creating podcasts as well. Like, I know that I think I follow a few influencers on Instagram, for example, and some of them have started up podcasts in the last few months, which is probably a bit late to be jumping on it, but, there's still definitely demand, and I think there's still people keen to get involved in that.
Moving on to some more WordPress news. WordPress cracking down on the use of the WP. So if you're, Yoast is one plugin that doesn't use WP, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a plugin out there called WP SEO. The biggest one that comes to mind is WP Rocket, which is a caching plugin that is quite mainstream. And essentially, people have found that when they push a new plugin, a new WordPress plugin with the WP in their name and slug, they're getting rejected, or they were getting rejected. This guy, Joe Youngblood, which is such a cool name.
What a name.
I just have to mention that. On Friday the 13th, so less than a week ago, was horrified. I mean, horrified is, I think, a bit too dramatic for this instance, but
yeah.
It was just...
Can I just say that whole sentence, Joe Youngblood had an unpleasant surprise on Friday the 13th and was horrified. That's a lot.
It's very dramatic, and I'm not saying it's necessarily... I mean, this is from a website called Coy Wolf, so coywolf.news. Maybe
really leaning into the spooky stuff, aren't they?
Oh, and quite... I mean, I'm going to say it's a bit sensationalist, but... this is more interesting, again, talking about Yoast in the past, or just a few minutes ago, because, so WP essentially is a trademark of Automatic, which is the company founded by Matt Mullenweg, the guy who created WordPress. WordPress has WordPress.com and WordPress.org. We've written heaps of articles about it, and talked about it and gone on about it in the past. But essentially, WordPress.com is a company, is a for-profit company, and then WordPress.org is a open source project. I've always felt weird because they've owned they've had a restriction on the use of I think it's the use of the name or the word WordPress has been somewhat controlled, especially on domain names. I think they've had it trademarked for a while, and now the same thing's happening with WP. So this again is just to keep you WordPress developers and builders and people who have WordPress sites on notice a little bit, just to say there's some interesting things happening. Automatic has bought, WooCommerce, and again, there's a bit of consolidation happening here that might not necessarily be a good thing, is what I'm saying. I think when there's an open source service platform that is so significant, so big, such a, like WordPress is, when for-profit companies get involved, they have to be for-profit, and they have a certain set of priorities. And this might seem small, but why? Like, I don't know. Why do you need to lock down the use of the term WP, like the two letters WP?
Yeah, I was just trying to think through that, because I can sort of see two sides. One side, you've got WP and all these developers using WP, and people recognize WP as WordPress. So that's just like free advertising, really. On the other hand, you've got all these rogue people using your sort of brand, and then it's like you don't have that control over your brand as WP. So it sounds like they're really just trying to gain control of their brand, given they're so large now. Maybe previously they didn't feel like they should be doing that because they were, still building or something. They've been a massive company for quite a while, but maybe now they've just gone, all right, let's take control of our brand and stop other people using it as WP or whatever form.
But potentially, I just looked it up, Charitable. So we interviewed one of the co-founders of Charitable, and their domain is wpcharitable.com, I believe. .com. So, they've been using WP for a long time. I don't know what you would find if you go to charitable.com without the WP, but if they were to really start enforcing it, I just think it's not quite fair is the wrong word, but I think it's it's a bit aggressive. Are
they stopping people that already have WP, or is it just new registers?
Looking through it, so they've broken down some of the things that we're aware of when it comes to this WP. What they're saying is that 3 months ago, the WordPress Foundation requested that the volunteer team block plugins from using the term WP at the start of their name. The WordPress Foundation itself don't have any legal rights to the term WP, only WordPress, because WP is owned as a trademark in a few other industries. And then, despite that, the plugin teams started blocking plugins using WP. So that includes plugins also that, like WP Mail SMTP, because it starts with WP, which is again a plugin that we've used a fair bit. And then apparently there are various legal teams hashing it out. So it's not necessarily that they've got the trademark yet, but potentially they're trying to get it. In 2010, Matt Mullenweg established the WordPress Foundation and then took ownership of the trademark WordPress, and then people just stopped using the word WordPress in the URL. So yeah, it doesn't seem to be clear yet. I don't think anyone's actually come out and said, okay, you can't use it, but it's sort of like it hasn't passed as a law at a high level, but then for all intents and purposes, it's being blocked, because if the plugin team, if you can't push a plugin with WP in it, you might as well not be able to, it might as well just be a rule, right?
Yeah,
there's no point. Yeah, it's interesting, and it mentions here that the WordPress Foundation holds the WordPress trademark, not Automatic. So, yeah, again, a bit messy, because the WordPress Foundation is a not-for-profit organization. Automatic is a for-profit company that, wants to make money. Automatic, I think, potentially, I might be wrong, but I'm fairly sure Automatic even owns Tumblr. So, you know, they're very much a real
yeah,
company.
who bought Tumblr? Am I just really behind on that?
Yeah, it's been sold. Yeah,
Okay.
I can confirm.
I mean, I kind of forgot Tumblr existed, to be honest, because I don't know who really uses it anymore.
No, a lot of people have forgotten about it. And Automatic also owns Longreads, which is a storytelling platform that I know had some popularity, at least at one point. So, this is funny. I'm just looking at the Automatic site. Let me share that in this tab. Funny enough, there's WP Job Manager, which is probably a WordPress. Yeah, there you go, a WordPress plugin that is owned by Automatic. So I wonder if we're going to see that change moving forward as well, because you would assume that you want to have a consistent ruling across everything for everyone. So I think that's a little funny though.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Moving on to the next one. Do you eat much ice cream, Kelsey?
I do love a bit of ice cream.
Just a bit or a lot?
I'm trying to limit myself, but it's not going very well, especially now that we're in a pandemic.
In lockdown, yeah, especially more recently.
Sorry, lockdown, yeah.
Do you have Haagen-Dazs much?
I mean, it's a bit fancy for me.
Yeah,
I usually go the cheap, like Coles or Woolies kind of brand, to be honest, and sometimes splash out and treat myself, but not usually with Haagen-Dazs. Yeah,
Haagen-Dazs, I mean, it's a pretty big company. It's established in 1960. I think basically everyone's aware of Haagen-Dazs. They've recently refreshed their branding. As you can see here, we're back on Brand News website to talk about this. This logo, though, seems to have been used elsewhere quite extensively in other geographies that isn't the US. It's also paired with this nice little packaging refresh here as well. The general look and feel is looking the same, more or less. I don't know. What do you think?
I quite like it. I like that they've added a bit more spacing around the word mark. I don't know. I'm kind of sad that they lost the gold because it's fancy, but then like the dark brown is also quite a fancy kind of feel and is more natural and like food coloured, I suppose.
Yeah, it is more muted. They've done a good job though with the newer graphics. I love, if we're looking at the packaging at the moment, for those who are just listening, and they've got a example of the strawberry, for example, is a nice, like they used to have photography that had the fruit of the strawberry, but they've now just made it a bit more tasteful, pun intended.
That's terrible.
And the graphics, I think, are a lot more modern.
Mm-hmm. I do like the differentiation across the three that we're looking at the moment, which is strawberry, pistachio, and I'm not going to be able to pronounce that because I'm terrible at pronouncing things. But yeah, sort of having that pink, green, and caramel kind of colour. I really like that they've tied that up together.
Yeah, and that's beautiful.
Oh, and there's little strawberries in the artwork.
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
It's a really nice refresh.
Mm.
Though I would say that
like it.
If, Haagen-Dazs wanted to lose their design and just have a word mark, they're probably one company that could get rid of like the little graphical detail if they wanted to.
I don't know. I think I really like that they've kept it and they haven't gone to like the Chandon
too much
style.
Chandon-esque, yeah.
Yeah, because they've really kept the same imagery, the same overall feel of it, but they've just changed the colours and added more spacing. It's like the right level of redesign without it. Refresh.
Well, it's a refresh, yeah. They didn't even redesign it, which is fantastic. And I think, what they've done with this artwork, I'm a huge fan. I think it's very tasteful, again, with the pun, but and everything's just right, if you ask me.
Actually, looking at the white chocolate raspberry one we're looking at the moment, it's showing, like, it's got gold edging on the lines, which is cool. So it's kind of kept that gold from the old logo without needing to have it in the actual logo. So they've still sort of kept that style a little bit.
The general look and feel is still, Haagen-Dazs. This is, I think, I mean, if I had to rate this, I'd give it a 9, personally. I think they've done almost
8 or 9.
Yeah, they've done almost everything perfectly. Almost. But yeah, they've done a very good job. All they have to do is reduce their prices so that we can eat Haagen-Dazs a lot more, and I would give it a 10 out of 10.
Well, maybe I'll consider it more with this new branding.
It is a lot prettier.
I was just looking at that gold one. It looked really low quality. Oh, maybe that's because it's a GIF. Okay, that makes sense.
Potentially. But yeah, you can see in this example, like, they've just neatened things up a little bit and tightened things up a little bit.
Yeah, cleaner lines as well. I think the old one has a very uniform stroke width. The new one has like some variation in it. Some parts of it, like the loop, for example. Yeah, that's nice. A bit more organic.
It's just these subtle details, and then just the spacing's a lot nicer with the whole shape and the graphic.
I like it. And
the last thing I wanted to cover, do you read Gawker? Have you read Gawker, Kelsey?
I can't say I have. The name sounds somewhat familiar, but no.
I mean, I'm sure there will be people in the audience who are a lot more aware of what Gawker is than I am. But from what I can tell and from what I've found is that Gawker's essentially a blog. It used to be really popular. People used to read it all the time. Fell out of favor a little bit from what I've seen. You know, the types of things they used to sort of cover would definitely not fly these days. Isn't the kind of content that people would, at least let's put it this way, there might be an audience for it, but there'll be a group who would cry out against Gawker. Anyway, from brand new, they've shown this refresh. This is for me at least one instance where, you know, about time is all I can
shocking.
say.
I don't think I ever saw that old logo. That's dreadful.
It is horrible. Saying that though, I do wonder if they could have kept the box like this a similar approach and created a more minimal version rather than going in again, the Chandon-esque. This one's has a bit more personality, but it's really just a direction that, I don't know, it just seems to be very commonplace nowadays, especially on blogs and magazines.
Yeah, it's definitely that same modern approach. Everything's sort of falling into the same line, I guess. I mean, anything's an improvement on the old one, though. Like, there's not a single colour in that old one that's nice to look at. That's really
yeah, and the contrast ratios are off.
I
actually wonder what the application of that logo, the old logo, would have been or looked like in the past. But again, maybe I'm not across Gawker or aware of Gawker as much as maybe I should be. So maybe it's such an old blog that back at one point it was very relevant and very sort of on trend, maybe early 2000s, late 90s, I don't know. Looking at their website though, now to me, like, their logo was fine, but this website, oh man, I am not a fan. Especially, like, I mean, this is a single post is what we would call it. So this is just a welcome to Gawker from a letter from the editor.
Oh, this isn't the homepage?
No, so let me jump to the home
Okay.
page.
'Cause I was like, I was
okay.
looking at on my screen and it was, yeah, I was seeing that and I was like, why does
Different.
yours look so different?
Yeah, so this is the home page. Just I don't know. I'm confused. There's a lot of fonts. There's a lot of colors. It's doing a lot and doing nothing at the same time. I think this is sort of the bad Twitter redesign on another level. Like if you took Twitter's redesign with a high contrast and then just added more fonts, I think that's where we end up with. It's doing that thing that I mentioned with color palettes with like a whole bunch of bright colors as well. It's a bit all over the place. It's quite a brutalist sort of approach. It fits within the grid. Fantastic, but just because I love grids, don't get me wrong, it's so organized and so perfect, but it's what they're doing within these grids. Like, I just don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I think on like first impression, it's difficult to understand what's happening, but I would probably say if you were a regular reader of Gawker, you'd probably adjust this pretty quickly. Because like looking at this more and more, you're like, okay, I can see that there's the heading is the center, associated image on the left, and then like a little bit more info on the right. And then there's kind of some like extra words for whatever reason. I mean, obviously the author's in there, but like...
I love the extra words for whatever reason.
I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at Chomp Chomp and I'm sort of like, okay, I thought maybe that was a category. It could still be a category. I'm pretty sure in the menu system they've got a category that's literally just Chrissy Teigen. Teigen.
Is it Teigen?
It's Teigen, yes. There was a big thing where she corrected it one day because nobody pronounced it right, but it's Teigen.
Right.
Although knowing me, I've probably stuffed up that pronunciation anyway.
So looking at the menu, yeah, there's Chrissy Teigen, there's NASA.
Yep.
Let me see, what's...
And I'm not sure whether they're categories.
No, that is literally a link to the NASA site.
All right.
This is a link to... This is still on site, so this is going to a /Teigen Tales, so maybe it's like a Chrissy Teigen...
That's interesting, because she definitely got like cancelled across a lot of social channels. Maybe they're trying to revive her or something.
Is Gawker a parody site?
No, I'm pretty sure it's real, but it's like, I think it just takes that sort of modern approach of, from what I understand looking at this, that modern approach of media where it's like, yes, it's news, but also we're going to inject our personality into this and you're going to get sort of more opinion news than just like facts.
Because
so
giving you the facts is a bit boring.
Yeah, it's a place you go where you like want to know details, but you're also like, it's entertainment at the same time, but not being like Women's Weekly kind of vibe of just like pure trash. At least there's like potentially some editorial integrity, maybe. Although saying that, I haven't read anything, so I could be way off.
Yeah, I mean, there's... It's just... I just don't know what's going on. And okay, granted, I am not the regular reader, but I think most, if not all, websites and brands should try and, at least be somewhat welcoming to almost any audience. I get it. You want to be, you want to talk to and communicate to your target audience, but looking at this, though, I don't know that it necessarily speaks to a specific audience either.
I feel like everything they've done in terms of design and what I imagine their like writing style is like is on brand. Actually, I feel like, I mean, when it comes to Gawker, it's a bit of an odd name, isn't it? And it's very like, just the whole vibe of it. I can't explain what it is, but the whole vibe of it seems to very much fit together. But I don't think that fits in with the kind of stuff that you'd be interested in reading. So I can understand why you're looking at this just like, what's going on? And then in terms of being welcoming, I feel like that sort of would definitely go against the Gawker brand. And I think a lot of brands really try to lean into like not being as welcoming or like not fitting into that classic mold because that attracts that group of people that
certain demo
really just want to be away from that.
Because it's like a rebellious teenager vibe.
Yeah, that's true. But like also trying to be like a high-end editorial kind of thing, which is a weird mix.
Yes.
Like very artsy and yeah, brutalist, as you said before, that whole vibe.
Yeah, I wonder though, in comparison, like there's Womankind magazine, which I think is, see, this is what I'm talking about. I mean, this is maybe a bit more in the opposite direction for me, but I'm just trying to think of sort of comparison sites.
Yeah, I mean, I think to pedestrian TV, like that's something that I definitely consume myself, and I think, I mean, the whole publication is aimed at millennial kind of people, I suppose. This is probably slightly more mainstream. I think they were bought by like Channel 9 or Channel 7 or something, so they've kind of come back into the main, but they're very much like sarcastic headlines, and they lean on like memes, and writing style is very much like swear words and batchy recaps and stuff like that. That's kind of trash, but then they also get some like really hard-hitting stuff as well.
Right, okay. Yeah, I mean, I've heard of pedestrian. Again, doesn't... Yeah, I'm not loving that when I hover, I can't... There's no... It's not reacting to my mouse. Like, it's showing me that it's clickable, but it's not necessarily... It almost looks... No, let's not go down that rabbit hole. I don't want to offend, but I will offend about this. I just don't know what's going on. I think I agree with you, Kelsey. It's got a certain aesthetic. It's hitting that aesthetic really well, but, you know, I don't know that... maybe there's a market.
It's not for you.
It's definitely not for me.
Yeah.
But, you know, from what I could tell, they've hired sort of a new team. They've been purchased by another company recently. So maybe this is all part of this rebrand. Even the use of sort of almost meme photography within their articles.
And I've got to say, like, looking at this, I feel like they definitely run the risk of it becoming outdated quickly. Not that it's, like, in date or whatever, but, you know, at some point, this is not going to appeal to even their demographic, I feel like, fairly soon, and they're going to have to be updating it quite frequently to keep on top of the latest trends of website design, because it's very much in that brutalist trend that we talked about, and there's a lot of websites that follow the same kind of design, but I think it'll become outdated pretty quickly.
Yeah, definitely. Like this, because this is very much like on trend, and they're going to have to do something about it if they want to stay relevant moving forward. But yeah, that's an interesting way to finish up this episode. Was there anything else you wanted to mention or talk about before we wrapped up, Kelsey?
Nothing that springs to mind. I feel like I've got everything out that I need to get out.
Awesome. All right. Well, on that note, thank you for listening to this episode. Links to everything that we talked about in the description, and I think we're ready to roll the outro.
Yeah, we'll catch you guys next episode.